My name is Marjorie Ellingham. I am 60 years old. The morning I returned to Denver, the air felt thinner than I remembered, as if the city were holding its breath with me. 7 years in Vancouver. Caring for my older sister had changed my body more than I wanted to admit. My knees ached when I stepped off the bus, and my hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the strap of my small overnight bag, but my heart was steady. I was finally home. I walked the last block to Maple Ridge, to the house I had bought for my daughter Leia before I left. It had taken me years of double shifts, night shifts, and more than a few tears to save enough for the down payment. I never told Leia how much it cost. She only knew that it was my gift to her, the safest place I could give her as she started her new life. I stood on the familiar front step and let myself imagine her opening the door, Rosie running out to hug me, the three of us laughing at how long it had been. I had rehearsed what I would say the entire trip home. LLA, sweetheart, I am here. You are not alone anymore. I slipped the old key into the lock. It still fit. Before I could push the door fully open, a man's voice cut through the quiet. Faster. Do you hear me? I said faster. Leia. I froze. His tone was low, sharp, enough to slice the air. I pushed the door open with the gentlest pressure, afraid even the hinges might betray me. The first thing I saw was the broken ceramic scattered across the floor. The second was my daughter. She was on her knees, her hands shaking as she picked up jagged pieces of a dish. Bruises bloomed along her forearms, deep purple against her skin. Her hair was tied back in a rush knot, and she wore an apron I had never seen before, once white, now stained and filthy. Across the front in bold block letters were 3 words: Kingsley family maid. Connor insisted she wear it at all times in the house as part of the strict rules he imposed, even when her mother was present. Leia did not see me at first. She was too busy trying to breathe quietly, as if even that might anger someone. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened, and for a single moment she looked like the 16-year-old who used to run to the bus stop just to wave at me. The man behind her husband, turned when he heard the shift of the door. His expression froze for a moment as he calculated the optics in front of Marjorie. Then he forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. Marjorie, he said carefully, as if trying to make this seem normal. I stepped inside, one hand still on the door, the cold metal pressing against my palm as I tried to make sense of what I had walked into. Leia rose too quickly, hiding her arms behind her, her smile thin and trembling. Mom, she whispered. You are home. Home, Marjorie, he repeated, stepping toward me with arms slightly open, as if we had rehearsed this reunion together. You should have told us you were coming. Leia would have cleaned up properly. Leia flinched at the word cleaned. She tugged at the strings of the stained apron, yanked it loose, and shoved it behind a chair in one quick motion. It was just housework, she said, her voice too thin, too careful, nothing important. I kept my eyes on her arms. She noticed and immediately crossed them behind her back. Her husband, Connor Kingsley, cleared his throat and gave me a practiced smile. We are so happy you are home. Really, Leia has been adjusting beautifully. Leia's shoulders tightened at the word adjusting. She stepped closer to me, but not close enough to touch. A soft shuffle came from the hallway. Rosie peeked out, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. She looked bigger than in the video calls, but her expression was uncertain, as if she was trying to match this moment to something she had expected and failed to find it. Hi, sweetheart, I said gently. Rosie glanced at Connor before answering. Only when he nodded did she whisper, Hi, Grandma. Leela moved too, her daughter immediately smoothing Rosa's hair with a shaky hand. Mom just surprised us. That's all, she murmured, her smile brittle. Heavily scented perfume drifted into the room. and a woman appeared behind Rosie.
A
Woman in her late 50s, posture stiff, eyes sharp. She looked at me the way someone looks at furniture delivered to the wrong house. I am Eleanor Kingsley, she announced, Connor's mother.
I
Nodded. Marjorie. She folded her arms. Next time, please, give notice before entering the home.
It
Disrupts the routine. Leia swallowed.
hard.
I watched her, not the woman.
I
Still have the key, I said quietly. Connor chuckled lightly.
Of course you do.
But things have changed a bit. Leia thrives with structure. Leia's fingers curled around Rosie's hand as if steadying both of them. I stepped farther into the room, the air tightening around us. Every smile in the house gleamed too bright, stretched too thin like something built to hide the fractures beneath it. Connor finally grabbed his keys and announced he had meetings all afternoon. Eleanor followed him with a list of reminders he barely listened to.
When
The door closed behind them. The air softened as if someone had turned off an invisible pressure valve. Leia exhaled shakily. Rosie clung to her leg, rubbing her eyes. Sweetheart, I said, keeping my voice low. Come sit with me.
Leia
Hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the door, toward the hallway, as if waiting for someone to appear and correct her. When nothing happened, she guided Rosie to the couch and sat beside her, hands folded tight. You do not have to pretend with me, I whispered. I am fine, she said quickly. Too quickly. I reached for her arm, and she jerked away so violently Rosie flinched. LLA's breath hitched. I am sorry. I am so
sorry.
You do not have to apologize, I said gently.
Just tell me what is happening.
Her lips trembled.
She
Pressed her palms to her eyes.
It got
Bad after Rosie was born. I could not sleep, could not think. Everything felt
wrong.
They said I was overwhelmed.
They
Said they would help Leia. I said, who?
said that.
The Kingsleys. Her voice
Cracked.
They took me to appointments, coordinated my medications, so I would be drowsy, told me to rest.
I was on a
combination of prescriptions that made it nearly impossible to remember entire
days.
They put documents in front of me, insurance forms. They said I signed
them,
thinking it was routine care.
I
Had no true understanding. She looked at me, then really looked, and the pain in her eyes hollowed me out. I did not know what I was signing. Mom, I did not understand anything. I just needed someone to take care of Rosie, and I trusted them. Rosie leaned against her mother. Leia kissed the top of her head, tears falling silently. Leia sat at the table, turning her wedding band the way she used to twist her hair as a child when she was anxious.
If you want to see
my records, she whispered, you can.
I
Signed the release this morning. I could not have done it before. I was too
scared.
I touched her hand. Thank you, sweetheart. I will go now while Connor is out. Her shoulders tightened at his name. Be careful, she murmured.
They
hate surprises. Denver General was quieter than I expected. A nurse at the front desk checked the paperwork, her expression shifting when she saw Leia's
name.
One moment, she said. Do you have a release for access? I handed over a signed authorization that Leia had
Granted.
Understanding the legal necessity, the nurse nodded and
Disappeared down the hallway.
a few minutes later, a woman in a navy sweater approached me. I am Dr. Patel, she said. I oversaw parts of your daughter's
Treatment.
Her voice was warm, but her eyes held the weight of someone who remembered too much. Your daughter was in a very fragile state. She began as she led me to a small consultation room. Severe postpartum depression, intrusive thoughts, sleep deprivation. She could not distinguish days. Her cognition was impaired. I clasped my hands. Was she capable of understanding legal documents? Dr. Patel shook her head.
Slowly.
Not even close.
She was on medication.
combinations that limited memory, formation, and slowed comprehension.
She
Needed supervision for basic tasks, signing contracts, especially anything as serious as property transfer would have been impossible for her to fully
grasp.
Another nurse joined us, holding a thin folder. We remember her well, she
Said softly.
She trusted the people who brought her here. She did not question what they handed her. She could not.
I
Felt my breath catch. Dr. Patel, place the folder between us. We will prepare a full statement.
dates dosage.
Levels, our clinical assessments, everything you need. I close my hand over the folder, feeling its lightness and its gravity at the same time. Outside, the sun was bright, but all I could think about was how dark Leia's world must have been when she signed those papers. Clarissa Nolan studied the folder I placed on her desk without saying a word. She was in her early 50s, sharp-voiced and sharper-eyed, the kind of woman who seemed to hear the things
People tried not to say.
When she finally looked up, she tapped the edge of the medical report with her pen. This, she said, is not just carelessness. This is exploitation. Your daughter was in no condition to sign anything, much less a property transfer. I sat straighter. They told her it was paperwork for insurance, for medication. She trusted them because she was drowning. Clarissa nodded. That is exactly how undue influence works. They took advantage of her dependency and her illness. They isolated her. They controlled her access to information. She flipped through the pages again. This is strong evidence. Very strong. Leia sat quietly beside me, her hands folded together in her lap. She did not look up, but I could see the tremor in her fingers. Clarissa leaned forward. Here is what we do. First, we send a formal settlement demand. They have 48 hours to return the house and compensate Leia for damages. Leia's breath caught. Will they actually do that? Families like the Kingsleys. Clarissa shrugged. Sometimes they panic. Sometimes they double down. Either way, we prepare. She slid a legal pad toward herself. Second, we build a civil case. We will outline every instance of fraud and coercion. And third, I asked her, voice lowered with purpose, if they refuse to settle, we file a criminal referral. Exploitation of a vulnerable adult carries heavy consequences. They will not be able to hide behind money or reputation. Leia lifted her eyes, then small, uncertain but awake, in a way I had not seen for years. We are not powerless anymore. Clarissa said for the first time. Leia nodded. The Kingsley mansion looked exactly like the kind of place where people believed consequences were optional. Clarissa walked beside me with her briefcase held steady, her expression unreadable. Leia stayed home with Rosie. Clarissa insisted she did not need to be present for what would happen next. A man in a tailored suit opened the door. Mrs. Ellingham, he said, as though tasting something sour. My parents are waiting. He led us through a spotless hallway into a sitting room where Ella Laner Kingsley stood by a marble fireplace, arms crossed. Her husband, Richard Kingsley, remained seated, legs crossed, an air of bored entitlement surrounding him. Let us keep this brief, Eleanor said. We have a dinner engagement. Clarissa smiled politely. Then I will
Get straight to the point.
We are here to resolve the matter of the property your son obtained from Leia Ellingham while she was medically incapable of
Consenting.
Eleanor's jaw tightened. Medically incapable. She had the baby blues. Every young mother does. I felt heat rise up my throat, but Clarissa lifted a hand slightly, steadying me. Richard finally spoke. Leia signed freely. We supported her, fed her, housed her. She owed us. Clarissa opened the folder and laid out the medical documentation between them. This is Dr. Patel's clinical assessment. Leia was on medication combinations that impaired her memory, comprehension, and decision legally. Anything she signed during that period is void.
Eleanor
barely glanced at the papers. Doctors exaggerate to avoid liability. Clarissa's voice sharpened. She was not
Competent.
You knew she was vulnerable. You exploited that vulnerability, and you will return the house. Richard leaned back, lips curving. Or what? You threatened us with legal action. We know. Attorneys far above your level. Clarissa clasped her hands calmly. You have 48 hours to sign a voluntary transfer and pay damages. After that, we file both civil and criminal complaints. Exploitation of a vulnerable adult is not something even your family connections can soften. Eleanor stepped closer, lowering her voice to something cold and almost intimate. Mrs. Ellingham, you would be wise to consider the consequences of provoking people with influence. I met her stare without blinking. I am not afraid of you.
Her
Smile flickered, thin and brittle. Clarissa gathered the documents. You have the deadline. We will expect your response. Richard dismissed us with a small wave as though ending a trivial conversation outside. The air felt sharper, the wind cutting across the driveway. Clarissa glanced at me as we walked to the car. They will fight, she said quietly. People like them always do. I nodded, my hands steady for the first time since returning to Denver. The article appeared 2 days after our meeting with the Kingsleys. I did not know the journalist, but she called me that morning with a calm, steady voice. My name is Maria Santos.
I
Am investigating patterns of exploitation involving postpartum women. Someone referred me to you. I hesitated. Leah sat at the kitchen table, tracing circles on Rosie's coloring book.
She
Looked up at me, waiting. We can talk, I said quietly, but only if my daughter is
protected.
Maria came that afternoon. She asked gentle questions, never pushing past what Leah could handle. When Leah's voice shook, Maria set her notebook down and waited. At the end, she said, You are not alone. People need to hear this. The story spread faster than I expected. Neighbors knocked on our door, apologizing for not seeing the signs sooner. A social worker called offering resources. Clarissa forwarded 3 emails from women who had lived through similar manipulation. By the next morning, the Kingsleys had issued no response, but the courthouse moved quickly in Judge Barrett's chambers. Clarissa presented the medical evaluations and the pattern of coercion. Leela sat beside me, hands folded tightly, but her gaze was forward, not
Down.
the judge reviewed everything without expression. When she finally spoke, her tone left no room for argument. Given the evidence of impaired capacity and undue influence, the court grants an immediate temporary injunction. The property will return to Ms. Leah Ellingham until full proceedings are complete. The Kingsley family is prohibited from approaching or contacting her or her child.
Leah
Covered her mouth. A small sound escaped, part relief, part disbelief. As we stepped out into the hallway, Clarissa placed a hand on her shoulder. Your home is yours again, at least for now.
Leah
Nodded, still trembling, as if trying to relearn what safety felt like.
It
Happened 3 nights after the injunction. The house was quiet, Rosie asleep in Leah's old bedroom.
A
Nightlight casting a soft glow under the
door.
Leah sat on the couch beside me, folding laundry with small, deliberate motions, as if routine could calm the tremor still living in her hands. A sharp bang hit the front door. Leah froze. The laundry slipped from her fingers. Mom, that sounded like the second bang was louder, followed by Connor's voice, thick and slurred. LLA, open the door. We are not done. Leah's face drained of color. He is not supposed to be here. He cannot be here. I stood quickly and pressed my hand to her back. Take Rosie.
Go to the hallway.
Do not come out until I tell you.
Mom, go.
I said firmly. She ran. Another blow shook the door frame. LLA, I said open.
It
His voice cracked, swinging wildly between pleading and rage. You ruined everything. SU and you're meddling. Mother. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. This is Marjorie Ellingham. Connor Kingsley is violating a restraining order and attempting to force entry. The dispatcher reassured.
Me.
Officers are nearby and on their
Way.
stay inside. Stay on the line, the
Dispatcher said.
officers are on the
Way.
Connor slammed something heavy into
The door.
the wood splintered. You think you can take my family from me?
He.
Shouted. You think you can steal my
House.
that house is mine. Everything in it is mine. I backed away, keeping myself between him and the hallway. You need to leave, Connor, I said loud. Enough for him to hear. You are violating a court order. Shut up, Marjorie, he roared. You have poisoned her against me. You are the reason she took my daughter. His words were slurred, but the intent behind them was
Sharp.
Another crash followed. The lock bent inward. Then flashing lights lit the windows. Denver police officers shouted, "Step away from the door." Connor cursed, stumbling back. When he tried to run, they caught him before he reached the driveway. His voice carried through the cold air. Rage, desperation, something closer to collapse. I stayed where I was until one of the officers approached. Ma'am, he is in custody.
He.
Will not come near you tonight.
I.
Nodded and exhaled slowly, my pulse still pounding. Leah emerged from the hallway holding Rosie, who was half asleep and frightened. She looked at me, as if begging for reassurance. No one
Could fully give.
He is gone. Sweetheart, I said softly. He is gone. For now. She held Rosie tighter and leaned into me, her breath shaky against my shoulder. The final hearing took place 3 weeks later. Leah sat beside me, her hand steadier now, her voice no longer trembling each time she spoke. Clarissa presented the last of the evidence, and the judge reviewed everything with quiet, careful focus. When the ruling came, it felt like a door unlocking. All contracts signed during Ms. Ellingham's period of impairment are void. Judge Barrett said, the property is restored to her name alone. The Kingsley family is ordered to pay damages totaling $200,000,
Covering the market value of the
property, documented emotional distress, and legal costs incurred. Mr. Connor Kingsley will undergo mandatory treatment and remain on probation for 18 months. Leah's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She reached for my hand, squeezing it with a strength I had not felt from her in years. When we returned home, Rosie ran ahead of us, humming to herself as she climbed the porch steps. Leah walked into the kitchen and opened the drawer where she had hidden the apron. She pulled it out slowly, almost cautiously, as if touching a ghost.
Do
You want to throw it away?
I asked. She
Shook her head. No, I want to do this with you. We carried it outside to the
trash bin.
Leah took one last breath, then dropped it in. The lid closed with a soft thud. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just an ending that needed to happen. I want you to stay, she said quietly. Not for a few weeks longer. Rosie needs you, and I need you too. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders.
I am not going
Anywhere. Inside the house. Rosie called for us, laughing as she tried to balance on the edge of the couch. Leah smiled and walked toward her, steady and sure. Thank you for listening to our story.
If
it moved you, please like the video and subscribe for more stories like this.